I'm the camera operator on an expedition that has thus far covered 47,000 miles, traveling along the highways of Europe, Asia and America. We've been on the road and away from home for a year and a half, and we've visited over 30 countries. But I was really looking forward to reaching Africa. Dan was bent on traveling to the southern kingdoms. Since we've come all this way, how could we possibly refuse? We'll travel to the most forgotten countries on the continent and visit remote villages in the mountains. We're about to visit the royals in Swaziland and make contact with the primitive villagers of Lesotho. Take my word for it, we'll get a really close look at the wildlife, both down on the ground and on the high seas. Something tells me Africa will be quite an adventure. Episode 10, The Forgotten Kingdoms of Africa. We'll set off from Cape Agulhas. The spot where I'm now standing is precisely the place where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans merge on the southernmost point of the continent. They say this is where Africa ends, although for us Africa has only just begun. This coastline has been the bane of seafarers since longer than anyone can recall. The powerful currents and steep cliffs have amassed a considerable collection of shipwrecks. But today, the ocean's biggest threat is of a very different nature. And though I'm still not sure exactly why, we're about to go and track it down. We rented a boat in a town called Gansbai, and now we're headed out to sea. But we were soon to discover that we were not alone in these waters. Look, there are hundreds, thousands of sea lions. They're everywhere. I don't know where to start shooting. There's an entire colony before my eyes. Some compete for a spot on the rocks. Others jockey for position underwater. These mammals live their entire lives, assembled in huge clusters. I imagine this is their best defense against possible attack. Sea lions are not the only ones to be cautious. In this part of the world, fishermen no longer use small vessels to head out to sea. There is clearly something here that everyone is afraid of. But it turns out today, the whole idea is precisely to attract it. I know our boat is specially designed to approach the largest predator in the ocean. Still, I'm beginning to think we better turn around and go back. But I'm afraid that won't be the case.
Estamos a punto de vivir una experiencia realmente escalofriante. Con estos amigos me voy a introducir en esta jaula, bajo el agua, para acercarme al mayor de los escualos, el gran tiburón blanco. ¿Cómo están los ánimos? How are you doing? They say excellent. Pero yo espero que si al tiburón le entra hambre, se fije en uno de estos.
Everything's ready. The smell of blood will attract the sharks. What we're trying to do here is to get as close as we possibly can to the great white shark.
Step up, bounce it up.
All right, vamos allá. Dios mío.
Dan is usually delighted to find himself in this sort of situation, but things look very different once you're finally in the water.
Está helada el agua. Pero lo que me paraliza es el miedo, amigo.
See? That's what I meant. Now we just have to wait until it makes its appearance. Wow, here it is. with 5 rows of teeth specially designed to tear apart its prey. Specimens in this species can measure up to 11 meters in length. The fact is, they show little interest in the humans when there's a fresh hide of tuna nearby. But that theory does not even come close to reassuring us.
¿Habéis visto eso? ¡Era gigante!
No, it's not easy to look at a creature like this one up close without trembling in fright.
¡Qué miedo!
Once the sharks leave, the sea is quiet. But we're all looking forward to getting back on dry land as soon as possible.
¡Estamos vivos! A ver, hold your fingers up. Okay.
After all this stress, we feel the need to relax for a while on the country's southeastern beaches. But the sudden scares won't stop here either. While recording these images, I discovered by chance something trapped among the waves. Another dorsal fin? Phew, this feels like we're in the movie Jaws. But we're not. It turns out to be a stray dolphin that has gotten washed up on the shore. It seems it's not just the boats that run aground on the coast of South Africa. Now they'll have to hurry. The first thing to do is to drag its 200 kilos back to sea.
Con la ayuda de toda esta gente, estamos intentando salvar a este delfín que ha quedado encallado muy cerca de las costas de Cabo de Buena Esperanza. Y lo vamos a conseguir. Además se está portando muy bien.
A successful rescue depends on keeping its hide moist and its back facing up, and giving it some tranquilizers before putting it back in the sea. Sharks, sea lions and dolphins must all share the country's coastlines. In just one day, we've seen how these species are obliged to live together in the same waters, alternately avoiding and confronting each other. Further inland, the history of South Africa has run a remarkably similar course. We're headed towards the most cosmopolitan city in the country. Cape Town is a good place to go if you want to understand South African society. Time and again, we've found that the best way to start to get to know a city is to first climb up to its highest point. But here that point is a bit higher up than we initially expected.
Un teleférico nos ha traído hasta la cima de la llamada Table Mountain, situada a más de 1000 metros de altura sobre el nivel del mar. Y desde este punto podemos disfrutar de las mejores vistas de Ciudad del Cabo.
From the summit, it's clear that the city was built between the mountains and the sea. Devil's Peak and Lion's Head combine to form an enormous wall that forces the city to constantly look out over the Atlantic. It's incredible to think that just a few weeks ago we were in Argentina looking out over this exact same ocean. But there was no rock massive there to act as a retaining wall for clouds, and the result of this is what we see here. Cape Town has a microclimate all its own. The sky is invariably blue, even when the surrounding area is overcast. This phenomenon is known as the tablecloth because the clouds cover what's known as Table Mountain in white. Much further down at sea level lies the port district known as the waterfront. We've been told this is a good place to get some food, and that's reason enough for Dan.
Nos hemos acercado al puerto para tomar algo, pero aquí es imposible comer solo. Vais a ver por qué. Venga, esto para mí, ¿eh?
The Aside from the seagulls, along the sea promenade, we really feel as though we are visiting Northern Europe. The Dutch and British heritage is everywhere to be found, from the buildings' facades to the city's many white-skinned inhabitants. It's hard to believe that up until 1990, barbed wire fencing separated whites from blacks. Fortunately, there's no racial discrimination on the waterfront today. It has become a truly universal place. Not too far from there, I recorded some images of the cheerful streets around Boo Camp. It seems like life in this part of the city proceeds at a much slower pace, although perhaps that's just because the rest of Cape Town has grown too quickly. The markets in the city centre also aim to preserve the spirit of Africa. But there's something different here. I don't know, but I'd say these crafts and street shows have more to do with attracting tourism than with any real tribal culture. It's obvious we won't come upon any native communities here. If we want to find them, we'll have to get away from the main streets. And that means it's time for us to leave Cape Town. The moment has finally come to visit the most remote kingdoms on the continent. In order to get there, we'll travel a distance equivalent to crossing the state of California from tip to tip. And we'll stop by Kimberley, a city that changed South Africa's destiny. But somewhere along the road, after having traveled across 3 continents, our car had had enough. The motor blew and needed to be replaced with a new one. The problem was that this would take a while, and we did not intend to stop. Although this clearly just was not our day.
Esta es la grúa que nos tiene que llevar, pero parece que tiene los mismos problemas que nosotros. Do you need some help? I need your help. Let's call another one.
Sometimes it's better to take things easy. Nevertheless, we are fully convinced that our car will make it all the way around the world. At least that's what we're hoping. For now, we'll have to get used to driving a rental car with a steering wheel on the right. Anything to stay on the road. Upon reaching Kimberley, we discover an amazing landscape. But flamingo colonies are not the reason this place has long attracted the entire world's attention. What really changed the course of South African history is a lot less visible and is not easily found. The thing that makes Kimberley so special has been hidden under the earth for millions of years. All right, enough with all the mystery. I'm talking about its diamonds.
El complejo de Big Hole recrea algunas de las poblaciones que surgieron en torno a la mina de diamantes más importante de todo el mundo, que aún conserva en mitad de la ciudad de Kimberley una de las mayores excavaciones realizadas por el hombre.
Big Hole looks just like one of those gigantic craters created by meteorites, but the fact is that 50,000 miners worked to extract gems here, and in the process they dug a 787-foot deep hole large enough to fit about 25 football fields in. And that's not all. The De Beers Company founded Kimberley and also financed other cities with the sole objective of finding more diamonds. A replica of the old mining town takes us back to the early days of fortune hunters. And now here we are, revisiting a time when Kimberley was the only place in the southern hemisphere with electric lighting. The Big Hole Museum reminds us of the extent to which the mine transformed this place forever. Most of the city's population ended up working at De Beers. This is where they worked, in this labyrinth of tunnels they built using tons of dynamite. And all this to obtain just a few scarce grams of crystallized carbon. When one endeavours to travel around the world, sometimes everything moves quickly past the car window, and so I barely have time to shoot a few images of Johannesburg with my camera. Nearby, we find two completely different realities. With the end of apartheid, Pretoria went through some unusual changes. Black people began to occupy the city centre, where the best neighbourhoods were to be found. This in turn caused whites to migrate, and they ended up building their own housing complexes on the outskirts of Pretoria. I get the feeling South Africa is like a game of chess. The pieces live together on the same board without touching each other or mixing. After travelling across America from tip to tip, we've confirmed that there's a differentiating factor between the old Latin and Anglo-Saxon colonies. Latin America is a society in which intermarriage is widespread from northern Mexico through southern Chile. The truth is, by now we're looking forward to being on neutral territory, with species instead of races, and where the talk of black and white is limited to zebra stripes. Kruger Park is Africa in its purest state. Now that investors have finally cured themselves of their obsession with diamonds, the national parks have come down with tourist fever. Its symptoms, however, are universal, and anyone can come and enjoy a place where man is the intruder. Kruger covers an area a little larger than the state of Israel. It would take us several days to visit each and every corner of the park, and we only have a few hours. But we are nevertheless extremely excited. Our round-the-world trip was still missing some of Africa's wildest fauna. Getting out of the car is strictly forbidden, but we don't really mind this because we can still look out the car window at a landscape that's completely new to us. Anyone who wants to get a feel for the essence of Africa must venture into its natural reserves. We're just 3 more tourists. In places such as these, we forget how much we've had to get through to get here. When one finds oneself face to face with free-roaming wildlife, it's quite common to feel a sort of childish fascination. This is a perfect setting for children and photographers, or anyone who enjoys being in a place where mankind has never been in control. In their world, there are no compromises. Each species fights others in herds. Antelope stick with antelope, elephants with elephants, giraffes with giraffes. And all the others are left out. They're the enemy, to be ignored, excluded, or devoured. But such is the world of beasts. We humans, of course, are not like that. We gradually move ahead with the sensation that we're definitely on African soil. So the time has come for us to get to know the southern kingdoms. Swaziland sounds like a made-up name, and its history is full of legendary kings. It is such a small country that shortly after crossing the border, we've just about reached the other side. We nearly missed seeing its capital, Babane. Even though Babane is Swaziland's capital, it has fewer than 100,000 inhabitants. We soon realized that Babane is a tiny and very orderly place where men and women dress in Western-style clothes, not at all like the native garments they wore just a few years back. Dan is convinced that this is where we'll come across ancient African traditions. But so far, all we see is a society that has jumped on the bandwagon of progress, thanks in great part to its ongoing close ties with South Africa. Swaziland's real tragedy is that an estimated 30% of its population is HIV positive. Because of AIDS, its inhabitants have the lowest life expectancy in the entire world, 32.5 years. But despite all this, we find a country that's hospitable and cheerful, a new life lesson on our travels round the world.
No hemos querido dejar el sur de África sin visitar antes uno de los países más peculiares del continente. Estamos en el reino de Suazilandia, rodeado de amigos, y aquí vamos a acercarnos a la fauna salvaje. Exactly. Y además, sobre todo, como podéis ver, vamos a disfrutar del carácter afable de sus gentes. You agree?
Yes!
Yeah, you agree!
Nice!
But first things first. Mantenga is just a few kilometers from the capital. This cultural village recreates some of Swaziland's ancient customs. And in Africa, tradition always has its origins in music. Although the show is somewhat theatrical, I have to admit that the sound of their drums is authentic. Any camera operator who wants to travel the world will, sooner or later, end up filming African dancers. Visitors feel at ease, and there's always at least one fan that is prepared to take a stab at dancing, for better or worse. Anyway, anything to try to fit in.
Wow! Albert, do you live here?
Yes, I'm living here.
And how many people live in this village?
In this village, we are 24.
24 people.
24 people.
But this is not the usual way of living in Swaziland, right?
It was a way how the Swazi people they lived before. But now we're trying to motivate people to come and live like this one animal.
But this is like more now for the tourism than for the real life, or not?
But it is the living museum of Swaziland. This is how we live. It's a living museum of Swaziland.
Albert is the community's leader, and like a good host, he takes us on a tour of the village.
We have got 15, this is the very interest. So this is the door. So now the main reason for the door, why the door was so short, you just met for killing the enemy as you are. Just try to come in, please. Come out slowly. When this man come up, I have to beat him.
All right, and I
with an
catch.
object, because this man, he cannot fight.
All right.
So you cannot fight when you're bending.
So this is like a defense door.
This is like the fence door because he cannot fight when you're bending.
All right.
This is where we kill, how we used to kill the enemy. It's as well as a technology from our grandfather then. Get inside. Okay. This is the hut for the men.
No women are allowed
No
to
women
come
are
here.
allowed to come here. This is where you, as Danny, we have to sit down by yourself. Sit down, Danny.
All right.
Okay, Danny.
Yeah.
Let me now. I want you to pretend like a man.
Okay.
Just take off the t-shirts, please.
Take off.
Yeah. Wait, film.
Stop.
Yes, stop filming.
Stop. Bueno, esta es la manera en la que viste el jefe de la aldea, y él me ha pedido que me vista así para mostrar respeto cuando entro en esta cabaña, que es la cabaña del jefe de la tribu. Y yo no me he podido negar.
It's a sign of shame, respect to an older man.
All right. And I should take it.
I want to beat you. You hide. You hide.
All right.
So,
thank you for showing me, to make me pretend to be a chief that I would never be. But I like the way that you respect,
okay.
not the chief and the people.
Okay.
People from outside are the people from inside too.
Exactly.
Mantenga also has its own witch doctor, an old man who grew up surrounded by traditional medicine and its superstitions.
This one we call it impepo. You burn it just like I've burned it. It chases away the mosquito.
The mosquito?
Yeah, mosquito, you burn it.
For malaria?
In malaria, and you can even smell it, yeah. Smell it how powder it is.
Esto es bueno para alejar los mosquitos y evitar la malaria. It's a big problem here.
Yeah.
The fact is, we've grown fond of the Swazi. They've even managed to get me to turn off the camera and take part in an impromptu soccer match.
I can organize a team for you.
But to be totally honest, we must admit that the Mantenga Cultural Village has become a sanctuary for tourists, where Swazi rituals are put on display for foreigners. It's a noble enterprise, although I'm afraid that when traditions become folkloric artifice, that's a sign that those very traditions are about to be lost. In any case, what distinguishes Swaziland is, above all, its devotion to the monarchy. Dan insists on visiting the National Museum. I don't get as excited about museums as he does, but in this one we'll discover King Msates III's more eccentric side. His collection of private luxury cars is rivaled only by his harem of wives. A total of 12 women form an integral part in this mass marriage. 12 weddings, 12 beds to share, and 12 mouths to feed, not counting children. Personally, I would just stick to collecting cars. At this point, even Dan is beginning to doubt whether there's an authentic tribal culture to be found. It's possible the essence of Swaziland may have been reduced to its museums and tourist villages. Or maybe not entirely. Near the royal city of Lubamba, we find all the preparations for a wedding ceremony. And yes, it's a traditional wedding. Men and women park their four-wheel drive vehicles and forget their blue jeans. It's the first time we've seen Swazi dressed as their ancestors used to dress. We're in luck. The bride and groom's relatives have just invited us to the ceremony. The truth is, since we got here, we've always felt welcomed.
What is this for?
This is
To hit somebody?
No.
Okay, I take this.
No.
What?
No.
The two families gather in a solemn event. I'd never attended a Swazi ceremony, but I figured there were more guests here than usual. And that can only mean one thing. We've managed to sneak into an important wedding. In fact, some of the guests are members of the royal family. The children wait impatiently for the party to begin, while the elderly quietly give speeches, pretty much like any other place on earth. But everyone seems to be in sync when the dancing begins, and that is something genuinely African. While recording these images, I wonder how they do it. How can all these people improvise and dance like that? And just as we may have suspected, it's the women who take the initiative. No one knows how long the dance will go on. No one watches the clock. It doesn't matter, as long as it's fun. These guests here are members of the royal family. It would be rude to attend the wedding without paying our respects, and José Luis is very diplomatic in these matters.
Hospitality with us, and we're very happy filming and meeting you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is Shili Lamini, a strong contender in the line to the throne. As it turns out, we are about to be introduced to a real-life prince.
It takes her 3 days. In fact, they arrive on Friday, then it's the dance, the main dance on Saturday, and then after that they present gifts to members of the family.
I see that you are dressing like the King Swati. Why this? What's the meaning of this?
It's reserved for royalty. Yes, those from the royal family are the only people allowed to dress like this.
These red feathers and leopard skins distinguish the family that founded Swaziland 200 years ago. Young men also take advantage of this opportunity to court the girls. But I'll tell you right now, they're not the only ones.
Se va a meter en un problema, José Luis. Va a tratar de cortejar a una de las chicas de esta ceremonia. A ver qué tal se le da.
And go. Yes, and go. Yes. Not so fast, you just go, you saw her.
Prince Lamini himself encourages José Luis to choose a lady to woo. If he should refuse to do so, this could be interpreted as a snub.
How many times?
Just once. You put it down and you rise with it, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That would definitely be what we call a huge mess. He is to dance toward the woman of his choice and then lay a spear at her feet. If she is interested, she'll accept his present. Too bad. Our photographer is out of luck. By this point, we have begun to realize that marriage ceremonies in Swaziland enact a sort of family rivalry. The bridesmaids symbolically compete for the first gift, although, after what we've seen, I'm not sure just how symbolic this is. Following this, the bride is anointed with soil, and from that moment on, she becomes her husband's second wife.
The husband, he is allowed to have several wives, and he already has more wives.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have more than one. Up to you, more, even 10 you can have.
How many do you have?
I have got 5.
You have 5 wives?
Yes.
The first wife was unable to attend the ceremony because, unfortunately, she had to go to a funeral, or so we were told. You could say that this hasn't precisely been a good day for that woman. Although it'll be an even worse day for this cow. We've been invited to film the slaughter, but it seems no one can agree on the best way to hold the animal down. She just keeps on grazing, not realizing this will be her last meal. The blow fails to hit the spot, and the show becomes a bloodbath. Now they have to finish her off as soon as possible. I can't bear to look. Since the early hours of the morning, the men have been looking after the meat, while the women prepare side dishes of potatoes and rice. All right, I know. I realize it's possible that the way they prepare food won't quite whet our appetites. And I assure you, the smell is not much better. But what really matters is that to them, this is no doubt a very special feast. Each guest receives a piece of the same cow, another symbol of union between the two families. Afterward, the bride joins a group of women who give her advice about marriage. We're not really sure what they're talking about, but right after their talk, they all start crying along with the new wife. From what they tell us, it seems they cry about the loss of her freedom, her friends, her family, and her single life. Her husband is now her only duty. When you look at it that way, it seems there's not much to celebrate. But the women have made liquor from fermented rice and beer that soon cheers them up again. They want to share this good cheer with us.
Thank you very much. Un poco ácido, pero tiene un sabor muy bueno.
Anyway, José Luis is ever the diplomat. From now on, all will be happiness in this marriage. At least, that's what they say. The time has come for a radical change of context. We are headed towards a place where the inhabitants have preserved their traditions intact throughout the centuries, and it's unlikely they will ever change them.
My name is Pashi.
Your name is Pashi.
Yes, I'm taking you for a drive from Hlane Royal National Park. This is the biggest park in Swaziland. What is your special animals you want to see?
Yo digo que el león, por ser el rey de
We never
África.
know if we are going to see all of them, but I will try by all means to see all of the animals.
Vas a tratar de que tengamos suerte, ¿no? Let's go. Estamos en buenas manos. Si tenemos suerte vamos a ver rinocerontes, elefantes e incluso el león.
Okay, let's go. I want you to get experience.
This is not dangerous to be here.
Hlane Park is much smaller than Kruger Park, but that gives us one huge advantage. We can get much closer to the wildlife here. Formerly a royal hunting ground, today Hlane Park has become a sanctuary for preserving local species of wildlife.
Just been walking all these trees.
Our guide, Pashi, directs us to the edge of the park in order to reach the place where His Majesty, the Lion King, awaits. We had not seen any felines in Africa up until now, and all of a sudden I find myself filming a whole family of lions just a few meters away. The presence of the cubs is making the mother nervous, so we'd better leave them alone. We're starting to feel like they're the ones watching us and not the other way round. Now we know you have to keep your guard up at Hlane.
Down for the elephants. The one drop. It's a elephant star.
Look at that elephant. It's enormous. And I'd say it's coming this way.
Nos está mirando. Es un macho en celo y hay que tener especial cuidado.
Oh, that's great. Just what we needed. It seems to me he's trying to decide whether he likes us or not. I'm not sure why he's standing so close to us, but I don't think anyone feels all that comfortable right now. Okay, I think we get the idea. We'd better get out of here now. But we're about to learn that it's actually possible to have even closer contact with the beasts in this park.
Ahí están los rinocerontes. Increíble.
Pashi tells us that white rhinoceroses have horns that measure up to 5 feet long, and that when they run, they can reach speeds of up to 31 miles an hour. And that's precisely why none of us understand why Pashi stops the car and encourages us to get out.
Vamos a acercarnos lo más posible a los rinocerontes.
Our guide has definitely gone mad. What on earth are we doing standing just a few feet from one of the most powerful creatures on the planet?
This is not dangerous to be here.
It's dangerous, but you have to learn the attitude. You have to learn the animal. I won't take you to kill you, but you have come in Africa. You have come in Swaziland to Royal National Park to learn about the animals. Okay, so
This is really important to be that close to the animals, to learn about them.
it's not very important, but I want you to get experience. So, okay, let's go. This way.
I'm filming from a rather stupidly close distance, but it consoles me to think that in case of a possible attack, Pashi and Dan are even closer to the rhinos.
Never run. No hay que correr, sobre todo no hay que correr. Bueno, aquí estamos a salvo.
We've had many incredible experiences all these months, and this is the sort of thing that encourages us to keep traveling. Now we must leave Swaziland behind, a world all its own, where men and animals survive, and where you can still hear the beat of the African drums. But we have yet to discover Lesotho, an independent bastion within the territory of South Africa. The road grows steeper as we approach yet another forgotten kingdom in this most forgotten of continents. Our impression is that we've arrived at a place that prefers to stay hidden from the rest of the world. Lesotho's history has been built on the blood of its warriors. 2 centuries ago, the area's local tribes sought refuge in these mountains. This has long been an area devastated by wars and invasions, but today there are no more foreigners hiding in the hills. And this is what we find here, an abandoned country, and those warriors' great-grandchildren taking the cows out to pasture. Two hours of winding roads later, we reach the valleys below and discover that the region is dotted with tiny hamlets. We try to get a closer look at their customs, but our mere presence disrupts their day-to-day life. Children, women and the elderly stop cold when they see us, posing in front of the camera. The women flash us their best smiles and the men do their best to straighten up. In order to get to know the real Lesotho, one must venture into its nameless hamlets. As always, it's the little kids who break the ice and approach our filming equipment full of curiosity, fascinated by the paraphernalia of cables, cranes and cameras.
My name is Daniel, and your name?
Dan and Jose Luis are trying to talk with the Soto, but communication is difficult. And that makes us seem even stranger.
Can we go inside? Let's go there.
For all that, they welcome us into their homes.
But you said it quizzly too. What? Okay, you live with your mother here?
Yes. My father.
And your father?
Yes.
The whole family.
I suppose the wars and the mountain climate have forged a more reserved nature. Unlike the Swazis, the Sotos seem shy and distrustful, quiet, and even a bit distant. But if you think about it, we did come in here with our cameras, go inside their homes and leave just like that. Why wouldn't they keep their distance? All of a sudden, I'm reminded of a place we visited a while back. The cylindrical houses called mohoros are about the same shape and size as the Mongolian gurs, except that in the Sotos case, these buildings are made of adobe and have straw roofs. Many of the homes are beautifully adorned, maybe as a way of decorating the harsh reality of a new winter. Let's speak clearly. Poverty is widespread in a country where the sale of stamps has become one of the main sources of revenue. And the agricultural economy is of necessity based on solidarity.
Do you share everything? Yes, we are sharing everything because if someone doesn't have the corn, we just give it to him nicely, no problem. Yes, we are sharing everything. Even if you can give him a milk or everything, we are cooperatively.
You are like a cooperative.
Yeah.
So you share the corn, the cows, the meat,
Yes,
milk,
yes.
and all the food.
Yes, all the food.
Vamos allá, ¿no?
Each of us does his best to try to fit in as best he
¡Ya!
can.
El burro sin nombre y además sin ganas de avanzar.
Nice to meet you.
And so, gradually, we manage to blend in with these villagers' routines. With some men it's impossible. They look at us with indifference. But the women are starting to come out of their shells. I've always thought that dancing, whatever the style, opened doors for foreigners. This road leads us to the capital, a place that has little to do with the rest of the country. In fact, Maseru is the only relatively large city in all of Lesotho. Here, we'll find a scarce few buildings over 2 stories high. The city is right on the border and acts as a bridge connecting Lesotho with South Africa. But we are a lot more attracted to isolated remote areas, so we leave Maseru behind and travel south for about an hour. There is an unusual place there, a totally different world that is reality for some of the Soto. Koma Cave is the name of a hamlet where very few families live. There are no mohoros or cornfields here. All we find is an enormous rock face, out of which several grottos have been dug out. Nor do they have electricity or running water. These harsh conditions are intensified by the humidity and cold of the mountains, some 6,500 feet above sea level. And here, in this tiny hamlet full of grottos, we find the most cheerful people.
How is the winter here?
Very cold.
Is it very cold?
Cold.
And what do you do in winter time?
We make the fire.
How many people live here? How many families?
5 families.
And you live here too?
Yes.
And tell me one thing. When these houses were built?
1824.
Bien, pues aquí es donde viven. Me cuenta Matiti que no les falta de nada. La roca les protege de las temperaturas frías durante el invierno. Tienen un pequeño hornillo para hacer la comida y una cama para el descanso. Y sobre todo disponen de unas fantásticas vistas del valle. Bon appetit, Matiti. Bon appetit. Buen provecho.
The 4 children.
All right.
The girls. 4 the
Sí.
girls.
Bueno, ella me dice que tiene 4 niñas y nosotros nos alegramos por ella. No me digáis que no es genial. Ven aquí, ven aquí, ven aquí.
Ven aquí, say to Meleng.
Hello. Es infalible. Hello. Hello.
Yes, it's true they live in caves, but I can assure you there's nothing sinister about this hamlet. In this corner of the globe, the drama of poverty is decorated with dignity. Life marches on, under surprising conditions. People go barefoot, wearing threadbare blankets in temperatures close to 0 degrees, but they regale us with their joyful dances when it's time to say goodbye. But we will always have the unforgettable memory of Africa's most forgotten kingdoms. Back in South Africa, we're going to keep the promise we made when we first set foot on this continent. On the Storms River, somewhere to the west of Jeffreys Bay, a bridge rises 709 feet high. Blaukrans makes even the bravest of the brave tremble in fear. Not to mention us.
Estamos a punto de hacer quizá la mayor locura de nuestra vuelta al mundo. ¡Increíble, vamos! How many seconds takes to go down?
From the top to the bottom is 7 to 8 seconds. Excellent.
Excelente. Sí, excelente. I tell you later.
Although Dan knows the answer, the question is repeated time and time again.
Then this is safe.
It's very safe.
It's completely safe. Nobody died here.
No one died.
I shouldn't look down. Oh, well, at least I'll know what's beneath my feet, or what's not beneath my feet.
Till Spain, man.
Spain, man.
Yeah.
Spanish people, sorry for that, okay?
The zip wire is nothing but an adrenaline appetizer. The main dish has yet to arrive, and Dan knows this all too well.
Y esta es la parte fácil.
Ja, Fluffy, say now,
Pero si esto ha sido ya emocionante, no quiero pensar lo que viene ahora.
If I'm nervous, I can't imagine how Dan might be feeling. The wait feels like it's endless. Everything's ready. They ask him to move closer to the edge. Just a little jump, that's all. It's not hard. There's no strategy. All you do is jump. But the devil himself invented that last bit of momentum.
Alright. Oh my God.
After 8 heart-stopping seconds, to be fair, I have to say all 3 of us decided to go ahead and take that last step. Only after jumping did we even begin to think about the deserts of Namibia.